Good morning, folks. My name is A.J. Bernard. I'm the pastor at Center and Spring Grove United Methodist Churches near Washington Courthouse, Ohio. And this morning I want to talk about something that is near and dear to my heart. This morning I want to talk about the most important word in any language ever. The most important name. Now, what is the most important name? Well, it is of course the name of God. But what is the name of God? So we've been in Genesis, and Genesis is an amazing place. Everything begins in Genesis. But if we look at Genesis chapter 1, we see this amazing verse. In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. Berashit bara Elohim et hashemayim ve'et haaretz. In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. But it's a generic term. The generic term God, the generic term Elohim. For example, if you're a moviegoer, a fan of comic books like myself, you would know that Marvel's character Thor is called the God of Thunder, and he's based on, kind of loosely based on, the Norse God of Thunder. Video game players will remember Raiden from the Mortal Kombat series, and Raiden was also some sort of a god. Now, these are, of course, fictional gods. I'm not talking about anything objectively real. But the term God is a generic term. It kind of relates to a sort of class of beings, as if there were more than one. But there's not. But we can use the word God to refer to the true God or to the false gods. In fact, the Hebrew here is Elohim, and Moses uses this term multiple times. Here in Deuteronomy 6 and verse 14, you shall not go after other gods, Elohim, other gods from the peoples, me Elohi, good, me Elohi, from the prefix mem, meaning from. Me Elohi, from the gods. El, shortened form of Elohim, is a god. Then there's the name of God, and that's what we're going to get to later on. Elohecha, a conjugation of Elohim. Elohecha, Elohech, Elohichem. So the same word Elohim, and that's the point of bringing this passage. The same word Elohim is used for gods, false gods, as well as for real gods, as well as for the real God. Pardon me. So in Genesis chapter 2 and verse 4, Genesis chapter 1, we see Elohim used. In Genesis 2 and verse 4, we see the first place that God's name is used. Now, a lot of people like to say that there are two different creation accounts in the book of Genesis. There's Genesis chapter 1 through 2 verse 3, which tells one creation story, and then there's another creation story in Genesis 2 verse 4 to the end of chapter 2, and that's just wrong. How do I know that's wrong? Because there are a lot of things that are created in chapter 1 that are not created in chapter 2, things that would be essential for life, such as the sun, right? The sun and days. And what we find in Genesis 1 and 2 are the story of the creation of the entire universe, and then a narrowing of focus, so that we find in Genesis 2, beginning at verse 4, we find the creation of the Garden of Eden. And how do we illustrate that narrowing of focus? In Genesis 1, we call God Elohim, with this word right here, Elohim. And every time we see him, we call him Elohim. Elohim, Elohim, right? Sort of a generic term for God. Here it is again in Genesis 2 verse 3. And then in 2 verse 4, we have a narrowing of focus where we find Elohim followed by the name. Or the name, right? I guess followed by Elohim. Whenever you look in your English Bibles and you see the word Lord, as you see it here, in all capital letters, know that it is translating the special name of God. This is a Yud, this is a He, this is a Vav, and this is a He. Yud, He, Vav, He. This is sometimes called the Tetragrammaton, which means the 4 letters. And this is the holy name of God. This is the most important word ever written in any language, ever spoken in any language by any person ever. This one word. So how are we to understand this word? It first appears in Genesis chapter 2 and verse 4. But what are we to make of it? In Exodus chapter 3 and verse 15, God calls to Moses. And he pulls him up onto the mountain with the burning bush, and he says, say this to the people of Israel. The Lord. Now, when you see the Lord, with Lord in all capital letters, it's talking about the holy name of God. The God of your fathers, the God of Abraham, the God of Isaac, the God of Jacob, has sent me to you. This is my name forever. I like this in the Hebrew. Ze Shemi Le'olam. This, my name, is forever. Ze Shemi Le'olam. This is my name forever. And thus am I to be remembered throughout all generations. Throughout all generations. This is my name forever. Ze Shemi Le'olam. So, what is his name? Do we know it? Do we remember it? How could we tell? Well, you would say we could just read it, right? We just look in the text and read it. But you'll notice these sort of apostrophe-looking things here, those are cantillation marks. They're for, like musical notes, to help someone who is singing the text. But we have a consonant, the Yud. We have a kind of a half vowel, which is a schwa. Makes an abrupt E sound, like in bet. We have a He, which makes an H sound, but the He has to have a vowel following it. That's the way Hebrew works. Consonant, vowel, consonant, vowel. If you end on a consonant, you don't have to have a vowel following it. If the last letter of a word is a consonant, it doesn't need a vowel, although it can take one. So here's an example of that. Here's Yitzchak. Yitzchak, Isaac, ends on a consonant without a vowel following it. But there are other examples where a word ends with a consonant and a vowel. But you have to have consonant, vowel, consonant, vowel, consonant, vowel. The name of God is obscured. At some point, the Jewish scribes did not write the vowels, or write all the vowels in the name of God. They skipped one to make sure that it could not be pronounced. Now, this is not removing anything from the text, because the name Well, because Hebrew is a consonantal language. Hebrew is original Hebrew is written only with the consonants, no vowels in it. That sounds weird to English speakers like us, but if you write out a sentence in English and then you just go ahead and remove the vowels on your computer with your backspace key or whatever, and you show it to someone, generally they'll be able to figure out what the sentence says because we speak English fluently, or many of us do speak English fluently, and when you see it, you'll be able to tell. Let me show you an example. Here we have an example of an English sentence without the vowels. Can you read it? Give it a second. Look at it. Scan through it. What does it say? Obviously, it says it was the best of times, it was the worst of times. This is a familiar line from a novel by Dickens, A Tale of Two Cities. Another example, this is a line from the Bible. Give it a look. What does it say? I can do all things through Christ who gives me strength. How do you know? I've removed the vowels. Well, you look at it and you know. So Hebrew, ancient Hebrew, and even modern Hebrew is written without the vowels. If you buy a newspaper in Jerusalem today, it'll have just the consonants, no vowels. That's because people know how to pronounce the words. But removing a vowel from the name of God then only means that people who are not fluent in the language will not know how to pronounce it. People like me, Gentiles, people who grow up speaking English or German or French or something far removed. So the conspiracy to keep the name from being pronounced has been to remove one of the vowels. This doesn't always happen, though. There are several instances like this from the Damascus Crown, a very important ancient Hebrew manuscript recording a very important phrase, Deuteronomy chapter 6, verses 4 and 5. And when the scribe was writing this passage, the scribe didn't rely on looking at the text and then looking back to his page. He simply wrote these things from memory, because this is a passage that every Jewish person knows. Every Jewish person recites every day, or at least every devout Jewish person recites every day. This is the Shema. You can follow along here. Shema Yisrael. And then there's the name, but you'll notice that unlike the version in my Bible software, right here, which has the cantillation marks, unlike the version of my Bible software, this version has a vowel above the hey. So this is Yud, Shwa, Hey, Cholam, Vav, Kamatz, Hey. Yud, Hey, Vav, Hey. And the scribe is writing this from memory. He's writing this down because he doesn't need to look at the text to recite this. He's writing it down because he remembers this, and so he writes it down without looking at the text, and he writes down what he remembers. He writes down what he knows because he's a native speaker of Hebrew, or he's someone who speaks Hebrew fluently enough that that he knows what the sounds are, and so he writes them all down. And so here in the Damascus Crown, and in more than 2,000 other ancient Hebrew manuscripts, my good friend Nehemiah Gordon is doing fantastic work discovering these manuscripts. Here and in more than 2,000 other ancient Hebrew manuscripts, we have the name of God with the full vowels. And so we can simply read it. We can say what the name of God is, according to the way it is written, in texts like the Damascus Crown and the Aleppo Codex and the Leningrad Codex and 2,000 other texts. There's my editing software, DaVinci Resolve. It's what I'm going to use to edit the video after we're done here. God says, "This is my name forever. Zeshmi le'olam. This is my name forever, and thus am I to be remembered throughout all generations." Do you remember the name of the Lord your God? Do you know how to pronounce it? Is it important? Do you think you should? I kind of do. And so let me just end this video. I guess it's an exceptionally long one this morning. Wow, I've been recording for 18 minutes. Let me end this video by telling you what this says according to its letters. This is a yud, makes a Y sound. This is a schwa, it makes a short E sound. This is a yud, it makes a Y sound. This is a schwa, it makes a short E sound or an abrupt E sound. This is a hey, it makes an H sound. This is a cholam, it makes an O sound. This is a vav, it makes a V sound. This is a kamatz, it makes an A sound. This is a hey, again, it makes an H sound. What is the name of God? Yod He Vav He Shwa Cholam Kamatz Yehovah. It comes from 3 Hebrew root words. These Hebrew root words are Hayah, which means was, Hoveh, is, Yihyeh, will be. So in the Revelation, even in the Greek, when God says, "I am him who is and who was and who is to come," he's making reference to his holy name, Yehovah. I hope that blesses you.